Alrighty. It's 6. Are you ready?
6:15.
It's 6:15, and we need to begin the meeting. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Utility Committee meeting tonight. Thank you for coming, giving up your time to come and show your interest in the utilities of the city of Salem. Let's do roll call. David Weiss, Kyle Williams, Trina Pott,
Present.
John Hambacker, Harold Hamilton. Okay. You have a copy of the June 12th, 2024 minutes in your packet. And I don't know if you've seen all of this beforehand, if you've taken a look at the packet before tonight. Has everybody seen the packet before tonight?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the June 12th, 2020, can't talk tonight, 2024 minutes? Motion's been made and seconded that we approve the June 12th, 2024 minutes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Stacy, are you ready for some financial updates?
Okay, so this is going to be a look at how we finished the fiscal year '24. This first slide shows utility usage and revenues for the 2 prior years, and how we ended fiscal year 2024. Electric kilowatt hours billed out was around 50.2 million kilowatt hours. That is down compared to the same time frame as last year. Electric revenue, we billed a little over 7 million, with 277,000 of that being the availability fee. That's just slightly under what we had budgeted for. We collected just under 6.9 million. Purchase of power, that is what the city pays MPUA for our power, was 4.5 million. On water consumption, we billed out a little over 113 million gallons. That is down quite a bit compared to the same time frame as last year. Water revenue billed is at 806,000, with 157,000 of that being the base rate. That's about 4% less than what we had budgeted. Year to date, we have collected 814,000 of water revenues. Sewer consumption, we billed out just over 103 million gallons. Sewer revenue billed is just over 1 million, with 165,000 of that being the base rate. That's, again, about 4% less than what we had budgeted for. Sewer revenue collected is a little over 1 million. And then, do you have any questions on this slide?
Anybody have any questions?
Okay, next.
Citizens have any questions? Go ahead.
Okay, so this is a look at the electric fund summary. The top section is the revenues, again showing the prior 2 years. Then the next column is what we have budgeted for 2024. The highlighted, you can barely see the highlighted column, but there's one highlighted that shows where we ended the fiscal year 24. Then the very last column is the 2025 budget. For fiscal year 24, these numbers may still change because there may still be some expenses to come through, but I think most of them are in. We ended the fiscal 24 year with total revenues just over 7.5 million, with expenditures just over 5.6 million. If you look at the percent of budget column, the only category to go over budget was the capital improvements, and that was due to the reclosure we had to replace earlier this year. The board did approve the payment, knowing we would need to do a budget adjustment. I will be submitting those budget adjustments at our next Alderman meeting. On the other uses is 1.1 million, and that is the 544,926 going to electric reserves, and the 600,000 of that is going to the general fund, leaving a surplus of 780,000. Any questions on that slide? And then
Any
the
questions?
next several slides is the details within that those categories.
Go ahead.
Okay, so this is a look at the electric DNR fund, which is the replacement fund. The total revenues are for $46,000, with expenditures being $71,000. That was for transformers, poles, and hydrovac truck. And then, go ahead to the next slide. This is a look at the reserve fund. We've had some interest revenues, total revenue of $45,000 with no expenses. And then if you go to the next slide, right there. Okay, so this is a look at all three funds, where they start at the beginning of fiscal year '24, and then the ending balances is the far right column, is where we ended fiscal year 2024. With electric fund, almost 1.2 million, DNR replacement fund at 35,000. Then the reserve fund, we're right at 1.3 million, and our goal is to have 1.3 million, which is 25% of the prior year expenses. So our reserve account is now fully funded. Any questions on the electric fund?
Go ahead.
Okay, and this slide is our purchase of power. It just breaks out, it shows month-to-month comparison for the prior 3 years compared to this past fiscal year that we just closed. The yellow being the 2024 fiscal year and the gray being the prior year. If you look at the graph, the yellow looks like July, August, October, and January we came in less for the same time frame as last year, and then the rest of the months we paid more. Okay, and a look at the water fund. Water total revenues came in around $906,000. Our expenditures are $762,000. That leaves us a surplus of $144,000. For expenditures, we have come in under budget in all categories. And then the next several slides is the details within each category. Any questions on the water fund?
Okay, continue, please.
Okay, to look at the water DNR replacement fund, we have some grant revenues and interest revenues. The use of prior funds, total, let me see. So the total revenue is $402,000, and our expenditures ended up being $402,000. We did use some prior year funds, $144,000, to fund this fund. And then if you go to the next slide is the reserve fund. We've had some interest revenues of $35,000, no expenditures. If you look at the next slide, it gives the breakout of all three water funds. As of 6/30/2024, the water fund balance is $880,000, with the replacement fund being $66,000, the reserve fund at $745,000. Our reserve goal is to have $208,000, so we have exceeded that for our reserve fund. Let's take a look at our sewer fund. Sewer revenues came in at just over 1.1 million, with expenditures at $976,000. Other uses of $67,000. Wait, I'm in the wrong column. Yeah, so leaving a surplus of $46,000. The expense category that came in over budget is the supplies. That is due to the increased cost of chemicals used for our sludge, and we had to buy extra tools for cleaning manholes, but the overall expenditures came in under what we had budgeted. And then the next few slides are the details within each category. So the sewer DNR replacement fund, we've had some grant revenue, some bank interest, and bond revenue of $400,000. That was the short-term financing that we had to do to start paying some of the expenditures for our Phase 2B sewer upgrades. Total revenues are $683,000. Expenditures, we've had expenses for the sewer upgrade. Some of that was the grant projects and the hydrovac truck. Expenses totaling $439,000, leaving a surplus of $245,000. Then the sewer reserve fund, we've had some interest revenue of $5,000. Other sources of $67,000 was from the sewer operating fund, leaving a surplus of $72,000. And then this is a breakdown of all three of our sewer funds. So the sewer fund, $228,000, the operating fund, and then the DNR replacement fund ending at $426,000. Our reserve fund at $181,000. Our goal is to have $244,000, so we are short around $63,000 for fiscal year '24. Unless you have questions, that's the end of the financials.
Any questions by anybody? You did? You're good? Okay, Lisa?
Go to the details.
There's the thing, there's supplies, tools.
So the chemicals, we budgeted 2,000, spent 9,200. And then on the tools, we budgeted 2,000 and spent 2,297.
Any other questions? Okay, let's move on.
Good evening, committee members, Mayor. Quick update on utilities. Let's see, Water Department, we've been working multiple water service line repairs and a major sewer main repair over off of Hickory and 11th and some lowland properties over there. The back truck came in very handy. We had to suck that out and do a pretty large clay line repair that had caved in. They're doing their multiple locates, daily lift station checks on 8 lift stations. Samples ran for the wastewater treatment plant, that's constant. Consistent lawn maintenance and water for the water department and the wastewater area. The water service van checked all well readings, chlorine residuals, meter checks, meter swaps, reads, and other issues repaired. The electric department worked call-outs for outages, miscellaneous birds, squirrels, cooking off. Assisted the water department with sewer main repair, multiple locates, street light replacement still is an ongoing project as well. They're going to have to order some more street lights to kind of keep up pace with making sure those are taken care of. So that's the quick down and dirty. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. Why did you drive a city vehicle here to this meeting tonight?
I drive the city vehicle. I'm on duty 24/7, so I drive it a lot of different places.
Are you on duty right now?
Yes.
So when you come to a meeting, you're considered on duty?
Yes.
I find that interesting. Are you on duty right now? Do you drive City of Fish? Why does he get to? Okay, I just think it's interesting when he comes to a meeting, he's driving a city vehicle.
I'm also taxed, that is part of my salary on that. And I use it, I go all hours of the night. I get up at 2 a.m. and go out and weed eat things to make the city look better.
Okay, thank you.
Also, thanks for fixing the light on South Grant. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. I'd just like to make the point that from the time I come on at 6:30 in the morning till however late I work at night, I also stop and pick up trash around the city. I use that vehicle to its full extent.
Okay, thank you.
Was that leak that you fixed over on Roosevelt, was that a city problem? I sent you the email about.
I'd have to look at the map. We
Okay.
went through so many, ma'am. If we did, it was definitely ours to take on. so.
Okay.
I'd like to ask a question concerning the human waste that we're trying to get rid of that, I think you said $45?
$65 a ton if we were to dispose of it in a landfill, sir.
And how is that going?
We're investigating, I'm glad you asked, our wastewater treatment plant foreman, Josh Hunt, is working on land application again. We're trying to work out and ensure that we are within DNR guidelines to put that out, disperse it on actual land, but pH levels have to be right, it has to be tilled in. There's very strict parameters for how that goes on the ground, so.
But there were some problems with plastic and waste.
There are no limits that are stringent enough that we can't do land application at this time, so, yeah.
So farmers can pick this up at no cost?
If they meet the pH parameters. That's the issue we don't want to get into. If they don't have their land tested and their pH levels appropriate, they would have to apply lime to get their pH to a level where they could land applicate. And we don't want to implicate the city in a situation where we would have to remediate someone's land because they land applicated the wrong way.
Possibilities that farmers can get about requirements before they can pick it up and maybe encourage that sort of $65
And that is feasible. Right now, we're working on a large amount of land application that if we can meet the parameters out at the old dump area. So that's going to take care of a fairly large chunk. I'm kind of moving towards landfill application and let's just attack it from both routes and try to really clean out our sludge area, so.
I just don't think it's right after hours.
One other question on the weed cap, which was basically installed for arcing metal in order to remove heavy metals. What is the feasibility in terms of maintaining that cost to the city?
We're trying to utilize that. The fact of the matter, it just does not suck up enough moisture out of the reed beds, and it's not pulling, I believe it's the nitrates out that we need it to at the level we need it to, so. And Josh Hunt is very, he's really, really deep diving into this to make sure we do it appropriately, so. He's still ordering the reeds. There's one vendor that actually supplies us with reeds, so he's working with them to try to get more and continue that process. That's not something we're giving up on. It's just a piece of the pie, and when it comes to trying to take care of sludge.
All right, thank you. Can the people in the audience not hear me when I'm talking? Okay.
Does anybody have any other questions? Okay, thanks.
Utility rates, effective dates.
Apologies, as I see it up here, items C, D, and E were supposed to be subset under item B there. So this is just informational only, not even necessarily for discussion, but I know there had been some questions into the office about when new electric rates, the removal of the service availability fee would go into effect. And so I put these in here for your information and for the public's information about when those various things will go into effect. Okay? So, I mean, if there are questions, I can answer those, but assuming approval at all stages, those are when those would go into effect. Okay.
Any questions? Okay, let's go on to the MPUA mutual aid agreement.
We have been a part of the mutual aid agreement, from what I understand, since 2006. I don't know if members are all familiar with how this works. Obviously, we're planning for emergencies. It's a conglomeration to make sure that we can, other cities can back us up. We can back up other cities with supplies. If life were in jeopardy or those type of dire situations, we could choose to respond and assist. We have helped in the past in West Plains, St. James, in the first weeks of, I believe, windstorm type of events. Ice storms. They helped out with ice storms. So this is one of those things that failure to plan is planning to fail. And so having this in place covers us if we were to have a tornado event and we were out power outage, let's say in the that was in the heat of summer or something, and we were putting people at risk with heat stroke or something. We could ask for assistance from some of the other MPUA members. I would most likely be the mutual aid coordinator, and that way all the contact would flow through me. I would make the coordination with you folks if we wanted to enact this. It's all written up, reimbursement after the fact. We make sure we're insured so that we can cover our folks that come and help us, those types of things. So, questions?
Yeah, this sounds. Light now, so I'm learning. It sounds like the emergency management that Rick Henderson and I wrote when Ruth Gil Melnick was mayor of the city. The thing that scared me when I read that whole thing was the fact that the liability for the people and the city, it seems like that's kind of a scary situation for people that want to participate and help in the emergency management. So does the city, you say they cover this with an insurance policy if there was something that would happen to
Our insurance for our own folks to make sure that we're
So
covered if
the-
we go out. If they come here, they would have to have their insurance. And
So the
liability
insurance
coverage.
that they have with our city covers our employees if they're working in another city in case there would be a situation where they might find themselves liable.
I believe so.
What is that part of the individual insurance program that they have, or is this a special insurance that the city has on this particular situation?
To be honest with you, sir, I'll have to do a deeper dive into that and get you an answer back. I can shoot you all an email with that.
Okay.
It is a requirement to participate.
There it is.
Yeah.
So I had it on mute. There is a requirement now, part of the changes, if you look at this, this page here, of the summary of changes where it shows that it's
Work-
adding the
Workers'
requirement
comp.
for general liability. So whenever we have that, so it's now requiring us, I guess there was a verbal agreement before, and now there's a requirement in the actual contract for us to have general liability for anything that our guys do over. I've got two questions, one serious and one kind of weird. The removal of the arbitration section, allowing for other entities. So does that mean that that we can't hire somebody to arbitrate for us in this, or is that MPUA not being able to arbitrate or litigate against, or do you have any idea on that?
That's
I know, like, you know,
James
it's-
isn't here, right?
Yeah, I can email him and ask, but
Apologies, I'm not a
lawyer.
Yeah. So.
Yeah,
Where is the
I-
attorney?
I can email him and see what see what he says. The other one is
Yes.
one of the underlined sections for process of participation in mutual aid. This is the Missouri Power Utility Alliance, correct, MPUA? I'm kind of curious on number 2 where it says for Nebraska cities only, the MPUA member. Are we going to Nebraska? Like, is there-
I believe it's open out of state, is my understanding, to
So,
help
so
other
our guys
utilities.
have the
'cause
potential to go out of state.
MPUA
Okay, I
covers
didn't
such a
realize
broad
that
area.
it would also cover out of state.
When you look at all the requirements for our city in order to participate in this, that whole list of requirements, are we meeting those requirements? Do we have even a, I mean, I think if I were to go to Rolla, they have a mobile unit that's used. We used to have one that was in the bottom of the police department, I thought. Do we have a central dispatching and room for, in case we are involved?
We do have a safe place to be underneath the police department, and they are working on the dispatch center piece. We would have to work with the county on the dispatch stuff.
I mean, it seems to me if we have a difficulty with Wi-Fi or something like that, when Rick and I were doing this, we used ham radio. I mean, that was the initial, and we bought a big tower that was down at the police station. What if Wi-Fi and all that goes down, cell phones maybe? Do we have another means of communication?
The city personnel should be on FirstNet. FirstNet would be if you did have a cellular dump for the public. FirstNet pushes all police and EMS messaging, cellular service to the top. So basically, those folks will be able to utilize their system. And I get it, it could go down, but once it comes back up, and I don't know about ham radio stuff, I'd have to, like I said, do a deeper dive.
David, your question?
No, not a question, just an additional comment following on there. Nebraska is referring to a particular state statute that's cited in the document here. And in addition to that, it requires the governor's written approval for the out-of-state agreement to apply to any Nebraska city. So that would just be cities that are immediate bordering to us with the common boundary in the state where we would be able to respond there in a useful, timely manner.
Right, and this is under conditions when time's of the essence to save lives, prevent human suffering, and/or mitigate property damage following an emergency. So the likelihood is slim, but I would rather us be a part of this if we are hit hard. So,
Do the committee members feel like you've had enough time to look at this?
It takes a number of readings, and there are so many pieces and parts to it. The only thing that I felt really uncomfortable with was maybe the cost to the city and the liability of the people that might participate in helping in another city, or what liability we might encompass if somebody got hurt from another city, and the expenses. I mean, when you look at the areas that deal with the expenses to the city, there's a lot of expenses that we incur when somebody comes and helps us. And that means we'd have to have our reserves in pretty good condition, I would think, in order to be able to pay for their gasoline, truck, and personnel. I mean, there's an awful lot of potential expenses, and I don't know that our budget is real healthy, but I think it's absolutely necessary in a potential emergency for our citizens.
I also believe if we are not a part of this, and when I was reading it, it says if we're not a part of it, FEMA doesn't take care of the first week. They pick up, if you're not a part of this, they pick up starting the second week of, the expenses and such. So there are benefits to being a part of it.
Has this been considered in the budget at all?
I don't.
Not as a separate item. Again, Mr. Hembecker kind of made the point about our reserves.
It would come out of the reserves?
Right.
Okay.
And reserves would require Board of Alderman vote to use. So, I mean, again, that's the intention, it's for an emergency.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I have a question. on the letter, it's dated December 19th of last year, and it needs to be, the current agreement expires August 1st, so I'm assuming it needs to be signed by August 1st?
Yes.
Okay, so how long have you guys known about this? And it's just coming, I'm assuming we have to vote on this?
This could be,
Make a recommendation, okay?
and I think make a recommendation. I came on in late April, and so as I was learning my position and different intricacies of this job, I probably dove into this in May, June.
So why are we just getting this now?
Because I dove into it in May, June, and now it's been presented to you, so.
Okay. Who had this before May, June? Mark did? Okay. Because I think it would have been nice to have seen this before now.
Understandable.
Would that be possible for the future, for anything that you might want to consider that we pass on to the Board of Aldermen, that we get it in a timely manner so that it can be studied?
I have a question here. Do we have an opinion from the city attorney on this document?
You'll have to ask Sally. You'll have to ask Sally.
No.
Okay, and I have one additional question. Are we not a part of a mutual aid program already through MPUA, and this is just authorizing changes to such? Okay, so this is just a change because they're making some significant changes to it detailed here in the 4 bullet points.
Right.
We're
Like I
just
said,
we're re-recommending or reauthorizing.
I believe since 2006.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought we were a part of something like this where we could have others come in or vice versa. So, okay, so this is
That would have been
just an
nice to have been.
update
Right.
to it, and this is just authorizing those 4 bullet points, kind of.
Right,
looking
it's,
at that.
it's just that it's coming due in
Okay.
August, so.
That's what I figured.
Josh Kochedoff with the electric department said that, yeah, we'd helped with an ice storm back sometime before he started, so roughly 2006.
So we are already participating in something like this? Oh, well, would have been nice to know that.
I'm sorry, I kind of led with that,
I'm
with the
sorry.
2006, and it's new
So-
for me too, ma'am,
Yeah.
so I
Okay.
totally get it.
Yeah, from what I understand, it says like the current agreement is ends August 1st. This is just because they are making significant changes to the line crew and out of state stuff, which I don't think applies to us because that's like the bordering towns with the Nebraska thing that I was talking about.
Yeah, I didn't get that when I was reading that this afternoon.
Yeah, it looks like we're redoing the entirety of the contract, but I guess it's just reaffirming.
Okay.
Any questions from citizens? Debbie?
I referenced stuff too, and I was going to ask how, and part of it, he answered that question. This is at no cost to the city to belong to this program, correct? And it's been since 2006, there's a lot of guidelines that have to be followed in here. There's got to be a command center set up, the employees have to be trained. There's supposed to be a manual of some sort on A, B, C, and D, this will happen within the city. So is there training? Has it been
I would answer that from years and years ago when we first set this up as an emergency management. We met with different cities. Yeah, I know. But I'm saying that was all in place at one time, and it still may be in place. I don't know.
As referenced earlier by Mr. Payne, there are portions of this that take place at the police department. One of the other pieces about the communications, that rolls over then to the county if there's a failure on the city's part. So we do have components of this in place for various different pieces of the city. That being said, okay, we do have pieces we need to update. But yes, we have that basic plan in place. I don't have that plan in my office. Like I said, there are pieces together. It's going to be part of the whole emergency management program. We have a hazard mitigation plan. We have then the emergency management piece. And yes, we do partner with the county.
In other words, we've been a part of it, but we don't have it.
So you're not,
Yeah, I'm not sure the county does either. I'm gonna meet with me, like, talk to the county person.
if you don't have a plan and a manual, and all you have to do is a training, you're not abiding by what you're saying.
We have had a lapse in coverage in this position. I've been in this position 90 days. I will continue to work towards making sure this is all lined out.
Do you feel that we should make this recommendation to the Board of Aldermen based on the fact that there is no manual that's set in place or that's piecemeal with the county?
I guess my question would be, God forbid we have an event before you've got it all put together, what would happen?
I have worked at length with 48 schools through a 7.1 earthquake, and I'm confident that I could put people in housing and put people on the ground. Yes, I did. And I can have a manual here, too.
So you've got experience in this?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
But the fact remains that Debbie says that there is no manual.
Yeah.
Like, from my time being an alderman, I remember I remember this being a part of a meeting at one point where we went over the emergency preparedness manual, and I remember that being a part. I think we have had it updated, but I can't remember exactly when. It's been a year or two since I've seen any information on it, but I do remember that we had something, and it had been looked at by the Board of Aldermen and resubmitted just in the past 2 years. I can't recall the exact time frame though. I would have to look back at notes.
But I don't think we have a choice.
Yeah.
It's got to be signed by August.
No, we don't have to sign anything by August 1st.
Okay.
Yeah, I would assume that once we find it and if we're set, once we, so we're recommending, I would recommend I'm not ready for the motion yet. I don't know if we are yet, but I think, because it's not, we're a recommendation. I would recommend personally that we send this forward, provided that we can find the documentation that we have in the manual and everything that we have. If we have it and it is relatively, pretty much up to date, it may need some updates because we've had a complete changeover of people. But if we can find that and then get it set, I would move to.
I guess
Shoot,
you are
I'll
making
just
a
go ahead.
motion.
I move to recommend the MPUA mutual aid program to become a part of it, I guess is how would to continue. I would move to recommend to continue being a part of the mutual aid, provided that we have an updated plan.
I have some questions.
Okay, let's hear your questions.
Who is the designated utility emergency response facility?
Didn't you just say you? He had mentioned at the beginning of his conversation that it would be him.
But is it right now? They got a tickle in my throat, and you're supposed to have them designated, so who has it been? If we have an emergency right now, this is just for the city, correct? This is separate for the county. also says you're supposed to assess the utilities in all other areas, like your rate regulations and like,
Is it on?
If the mic died, you might use.
Is it on?
I'm just walking down this, I read this today, the whole thing.
I did too.
Several things that bother me about this. Okay. It also says that Mr. Hamdack, who was addressing this, we should have cash for workers' expenses. We need a place to stay. We're supposed to provide food, telephone services, laundry services, local transportation, I might say, reflect, maps. It's like, how do we prepare for this? Are we really lived up to this?
As I stated, I'm a seasoned emergency preparedness manager. I'm sure I could work through it. 7.1 earthquake.
Yeah, I lived in Alaska for 20 years, I'm very familiar with it. I respect what you did there, and I appreciate your background. But we are not ready for this. There's a county reconciliation. You know, you do that on a regular basis with this city. I'm sorry to say that, but that is the truth. And then, who's our board of public directors? I didn't know we had a board of public directors. It says the president of the board, or I mean, public utilities, sorry. The president is going to sign this. Who is that? The board of aldermen. Why does it say the board of public? Because we haven't modified that, that section of it to meet our. Does anything ever get done? So that we're, I'm sorry, Sally, but so we're looking at what's current. So this has been since 2006. But May, really, there's no math.
Mayor, I want to call this meeting back into order because we're getting way off the topic here from back.
Public comment, and this is freedom of
Public comment is at the end of the agenda, Ms. French.
Alderman, Chairman, Ben, you are the chair of this meeting. Please tell us what to do. That's the end of my question.
And I oversee all committees and boards, ma'am.
And you answer the people, sir.
Yes, I do. And we have an agenda, and it's posted. That the agenda is at the comments and questions are at the end of the agenda.
I think in the future, Mr. Mayor, that we need to listen to our people because they have genuine concerns. I don't think we need, I can understand the ability to maybe go off topic and go on and on and on, but I think we really need to listen to our people and the things that they are trying to tell us.
And we do. It's posted on the agenda at the end of it. It's called Organization of. At this time, I'm going to ask you to stop disrupting. All right? Officer Roach, would you please remove Ms. Murphy?
You are supposed to give 3 warnings before you remove somebody. That is on video. And you've never done that, Mr. Mayor. You kicked 3 of us out with
You're
the
gonna be
warning.
ready to arrest somebody if you're gonna.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Officer Roach, please.
You
Ms.
are-
Murphy,
you're not
Ms.
supposed-
French, and Mr. Everard.
No, no, sir. No, you have to call the police department. You are the sergeant at arms. Look at Robert's rules.
She's
You
right.
have to call somebody who's not the sergeant at arms if you refuse to. You have to. Look at Robert's rules. Somebody bring them up on your computer. That is, you know what, I'm ready to go. You don't need to go there. That's right, don't touch it. Am I touching you? I don't know. The mayor can, but I'm gonna say this. This town is being run into the ground. There's no question you can ask without being threatened with removal. Roll, roll.
I'm ready to get up and work out myself. What would you say?
We need to move on. So we have a motion. Is there a second?
This will be the second time.
Am I able to amend my motion?
Sure.
I would like to amend my motion. I would move to recommend continuation of the city's participation in the MPUA mutual aid program, provided that we get the that we make some updates to the emergency preparedness plan, as well as a quick legal review, since it is talking about the removal of arbitration. If we can ask the city attorney to take a look at that.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Call for the vote.
Before there's a question on discussion, I would say, and again, this has been a long time ago, but every single facet of the emergency management was implemented in this city. We knew where we could house people, what basements we could use, what churches we could use. We even had practice runs. I know that hasn't been done recently, but it's something that I think we're moving toward. And I appreciate the fact that if we participate in this, that we will upgrade and do enough. I mean, when you look at the paper itself, there's an awful lot of things that are required in there for us to participate in and to create. And I know that we have the capability of doing that. It's going to be a burden on staff members for sure, but it's something, if we're going to participate in, we're going to have to meet all the requirements that are here. And I know that's going to take some time, but I do appreciate the fact that you've had the experience. That's great. And I think that will allow us to move forward maybe a little quicker than if we just pick somebody at random and say, okay, this is now your responsibility. I mean, that's a long document, and there's an awful lot of requirements that are in there. And if we're going to participate in, which I think we should, we have to meet the requirements first and then participate. So thanks for your effort to try to do this.
Would it be possible to get maybe an updated copy of a manual or whatever you plan to do within like the next couple of months?
I will do a deep dive into this and bring you more information.
Okay, that'd be great.
Apologies, like I said, and I hate to use 90 days as a crutch, but I have not immersed myself in this as much as I have learning water, sewer, electric, but this is something I'm experienced with that I can bring you better information.
Okay, well, we'll look forward to seeing that from you. A motion's made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you. Now have a letter. It's a discussion of water meter fees, and this has been a personal baby, I call it, of John Hambacher's since 2015. So we're going to let Mr. Hambacher, you have a letter in front of you that he wrote and some information that he handed out earlier. And you might want to think about what we could do with regard to his suggestions.
Well, I think they just got the paper. I thought I had gotten it into everybody's package prior to this meeting, but evidently my sending didn't go through. So I made a copy for everyone. And that copy is in front of you. I know it's a little bit timely to read, but we've tried to address this a number of times. I mean, the paper that I originally wrote on this was in 2015, and we've neglected to, well, I won't say neglected, but we haven't done anything about it since then. So I'm proposing this. At the last meeting, I said I'd bring something in front of you in regards to these meters. You'll notice in the chart that we have about 371 individual residences which are fed by 15 meters. And there may be some requirements that are mandated by state and federal when some of these facilities were put in, like the McGrath Addition. The McGrath Addition has like 150 units. They're fed by 3 meters. So that's just one of the 371 that are mentioned in my chart. But that chart was made in 2015. And there may be a need for an update. And so therefore, I would ask the city, as you look at these facilities, there may have been other facilities that have been added and need to be addressed as well. And some of these may have requirements that nothing can be done because it was, again, there were some federal or state requirements. But there's other situations, and that was the other paper that I wrote for the members of the committee, that addresses some private situations. And I'm just going to take one of those situations, and it's addressed in the other letters you have. And I hope it's read and considered, and then at the next meeting we can make an actual recommendation. So I'm going to just address this one situation. We have, let's say, a trailer court in our community with 21 trailers. That trailer court is private and is fed by 1 meter. So therefore, when it comes to the service availability fee, we collect $10. We don't collect 21 times 10. If we were doing that since 2015, we would have had a significant revenue. Not a heavy revenue, but it maybe would have helped our departments considerably. So that's just one situation that I think we need to address. And every time I bring this up, it's like, well, how are we going to bill these people? They all have electric meters. The one thing about the owners that put in these situations, they recognize that electricity was one of those variables that was going to be extremely expensive. So they just said, well, we'll put in 1 water meter and we'll take up that with our rent increases. But when it came to the electricity, they said, nope. What we want every individual to have their own electric meter. So the private areas, I believe we should consider the fact that they should be paying their $10 just like I pay my $10 and the rest of the people in the audience pay their $10. I mean, if that's the service availability fee, I know we're moving that to 12, so I just use 10 as an example. And I'd like a discussion on it or a debate on it, or how do you feel about it? Because every time I bring this up, it seems like we move in a direction that has ignored it. But I think there's a significant revenue here. And there may be a lot of other private facilities like the Lehman Trailer Court. So it may be that I'm not talking about just the 21 trailers there. I mean, there are many housing projects that are around our community that are privately owned, and they're fed by very few meters. These meters, I mean, I rode my bike through town, and I talked to every one of these owners and tried to get this data. Again, the data was in 2015. I don't think it's changed very much, but it probably has changed a little bit. But I think it's something that we need to address as we try to balance our budget. And so I bring it in front of you not as a proposal today, but as you read the paper, you know, there's blank places on the meter charges and my rationale about the meters. That's one way. The strange thing about every utility, and I think you brought this to my attention again tonight, is that when you look at all the cities around us, there wasn't, as I said, every city doing this. There's Rolla is doing this. Other cities basically do rate changes for electricity, and the rate changes are always in the following manner. The more you use, the less we're going to charge you. It's kind of like when we had Heartland Metal. We gave them water at 50% the cost of all the rest of us. And so therefore, if they were employing 30 or 40 people, I don't mind making an arrangement with a business if they're going to employ 30 or 40 people. But when that drops down to very few people, then I think that arrangement we make for cheap water or cheap electricity or cheap sewer should be adjusted. I mean, in the future, as we look at businesses, and I think we need to make that contract very clear that, you know, your rates, if we're going to give you special rates, they have to be rates when there's a guarantee on so many people being employed. So a little conversation on the papers. I know you just got the one in front of you. Maybe next time we could have a good, thorough discussion on it. I'm not a speed reader, so if you gave me that, I couldn't do anything with it. But
Any discussion tonight? Anybody want to say anything about what you've read? Okay.
Sure. I've looked at this a little bit, and perpetuity since, you know, you brought it up in multiple meetings, even when I was a part of when I was chairing it. Yeah, and just a quick look, I do have Rolla's up. They do this kind of system where every meter, depending on the size of the meter, from 5/8 and 3/4 meters, which are residential, it's a $10 per meter fee. A 1-inch meter is 13, 1.5 is 21. It goes up to a 6-inch meter. If you have a 6-inch meter, it's $200 a month. For okay, is it on there?
Mhm.
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. So yeah, it's part of the thing. So like, yeah, when I look up Houston, Waynesville, I see a basic rate. They have a minimum, and then it's just a matter of use. However, it does seem to me that there are a number of, you know, it's not so much like that's a per meter thing. I don't think they've taken into account, you know, I haven't talked to them personally or anything, but I would imagine that the apartment complexes are based upon each one, you know, because it's water usage. Each apartment complex uses a different usage. You would be assessed as such. So I think it's a good idea to do that, because we do have, you know, whatever 371 minus 15, you know, missing.
Yeah, I think the reason I wrote 2 papers is because the one paper addresses private individuals who have made that decision. How the city okayed that decision, I don't know. I mean, for a private individual, and there may be far more than what I'm talking about, one trailer court, but for a private individual to put in 1 meter, but every facility have an electric meter, and I mean, for the city, that was probably a good idea because they didn't have to put in 21 meters. But on the other hand, when it comes to the people that live there, and as I put in that article there, if I'm in that trailer court, let's say, or one of these facilities, and I'm living as a single individual, and another family has 3 or 4 or 5 children, they want to put in a glove-bound pool, I would think as a member of the trailer court, I'm paying for all this, I'm going to use your pool. So I think there's a lot of unfairnesses that are in the private use. When it comes to hotels, motels, businesses, if they have higher meters, there's one way to do that, and that is through a meter charge, a higher meter charge. The chart that's in front of you, which is from Rolla, I don't know that we even have that many meters. That, again, goes back to the city doing some kind of investigation, and I know I had this information before, but how many 6-inch meters do we have? I don't think we have any 2-inch meters, or maybe 3. I don't think we have a 6. I don't know what that number is, so I couldn't add that there. But with some investigation on Steve's part, I think we could get that information, another burden on your heavy shoulders there. And maybe the utility department already has that information, I don't know.
This is a situation that really is embarrassing for me. I have a list. I had my water department put a list together, and I cannot find it in my book today. So I can provide you with that at the next meeting. I can email it to you.
Well, it'd be nice if it was emailed to all the members of the committee.
Yes,
so
that's
that
what I
we
meant.
can be thinking about this.
And
then
I
make
apologize that whole, the dog ate my homework. I apologize. It just did. I went and drove back over to the office, scoured my desk. I have that list though, and it's not a huge number of 2-inch
Yeah.
meters and such, but I do understand your argument and what you're looking at revenue-wise. I do get it, so.
Thank you.
My biggest fear is, Sally and I have discussed it as well, if we were to initiate something like that, we may have folks that want their meter changed, or things that could incur manpower costs, material costs that would offset, you know, the monies that we would make initially. So.
Well, as I talk to different citizens whenever I do these kind of investigations,
I had one individual that said, well, I have a 2-inch meter, and the only thing I use that for is for washing the grass. And therefore, I will change it to a 3/4-inch meter. However, if you have a separate meter, you bought those hose meters that help people out. So if you have a garden, you weren't paying the sewer charge. And
So could we put this on the agenda for the next utility meeting and have some pros and cons from you, Steve, on this? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And I would look forward to having citizens, I mean, I don't have a webpage or anything like that, but a lot of you know where I live, so you can knock on the door.
We're here for dinner.
You provide dinner.
Any other discussion about this paper? Okay, we'll take that up at the next utility meeting and see if we can do something about that. Take a look at the pros and cons. Is there any other business? Any questions, any comments? Eddie? Sure, I would.
If it works.
Can you hear me? Okay, just a real quick question. It's been a couple of months since last fire hydrant had been replaced. Just wondering if there was any kind of ETA as to when the next one may be replaced. I know we're about 69 fire hydrants that are still down, not operating as they should be, and just a curiosity question, that's all.
Steve, do you have an answer for that?
I do, Mr. Fleetwood, as I've stated before, they're still, they're functional, they're just shut off with the valve, and I am on my guys all the time about the first opportunity they get to replace that one. And it is really, unfortunate to see how many service lines are caught in this sort of thing. So, I'll be putting out requests for bid for maintenance of all of those fire hydrants. Most likely that would happen in the fall, hopefully. And painting of all the fire hydrants would happen next year with that $28,000 that's all being set aside. And trust me, if I could get some more fire hydrants put in or rebuilt, but these guys they're in the mud all the time. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I so move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded that the meeting be adjourned. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. See you in a month.